From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Growing a dairy from the ground up.
The most rewarding is seeing all your stuff you did, all your accomplishments, the change over time.
Meet a young dairy farmer who's more than just a cow guy. As USDA releases new monthly supply and demand numbers that sent grain markets soaring. We follow the latest impacts that changes to trade and possible tariffs could have on the dairy industry.
Clearly, the contract that we wrote isn't fully being abided by.
Team coverage from this year's Milk Business Conference in Las Vegas, right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Pioneer brand corn has game-winning statistics like a 10 bushel per acre yield advantage. Pioneer brand corn, your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths coming to you from this year's Milk Business Conference at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Industry leaders and producers are here to learn critical information that is hoped will help dairy producers thrive in what's been a constantly changing economic environment. Now, later today, there will be sessions involving the workforce on the dairy farm and what it takes to retain workers. Last night, several awards were handed out at the conference, and we'll be profiling one of them later on in the newscast. But first, we received a new look at the grain balance sheet from USDA in the latest supply-demand report, and the agency making a big cut to corn stocks on greater use for ethanol and larger exports, coming in at 1.7 billion bushels, down 200 million bushels from last month. Soybeans were left unchanged at 470 million bushels, while wheat comes in at 795 million bushels, a cut of 20 million, but still up 14% from a year ago. AgDay's Michelle Rook has been poring over the latest report. And Michelle, the news sent grains higher, especially corn.
Clinton, corn had rallied coming into the report, anticipating lower corn ending stocks, but USDA's cut was way more aggressive than expected. The agency doesn't make changes to production in the December report and historically has made only slight changes to demand. So this was a surprise, although some thought the market reaction was a bit muted. USDA shocked the market by lowering corn ending stocks 200 million bushels to 1.738 billion. The market was anticipating a cut with strong cash basis levels, strong ethanol production, and U.S. export commitments running 33% ahead of last year. However, USDA raised demand a whopping 200 million bushels.
I think you could make a pretty darn good case for exports going up 150. As far as ethanol goes, I think it's a mixed bag. Ethanol grind's been fantastic over the last few weeks, but seen a little bit of a slowdown here over the last week or so, and we're hearing maybe some more slowdowns ahead. So, maybe that ethanol number has to actually go back down later. I'm not sure, but exports, there's probably still a little more meat on the bone there if we continue to see the sales that we've seen here lately.
The other surprise was that USDA was this aggressive, with talk recently that export demand was front-loaded due to tariff concerns and may shut off when the Trump administration takes office.
You've got to think that maybe Mexico was front loaded to an extent, but we still feel like they've got more corn to buy on further down the road.
Soybean ending stocks were left unchanged at 470 million bushels, and Argentina production was raised just 1 million metric tons to 52 million. Brazil was left at 169 million, which is a record, but Bennett says that may be a gift.
You look at Brazil, and they could have adjusted Brazil up some. I mean, USDA's been a little bit low compared to some of the private estimates. We've seen private estimates into the mid 170s even.
Right.
And so right now, the thing is, for the bean market, you just haven't been able to find a good reason to rally.
The report was slightly friendly for wheat as USDA lowered ending stocks 20 million bushels to 795 million, which was below expectations. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Coverage of the Milk Business Conference on AgDay is brought to you by Rabo AgriFinance. Discover how local relationship managers and global sector expertise can help you address challenges and seize opportunities. Rabo AgriFinance. Let's talk. Learn more at www.raboag.com.
Now, trade is a big part of the discussions here at the Milk Business Conference and how things could possibly change under the incoming Trump administration. Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan joins me as part of our team coverage. And Tyne, folks are keeping an eye on what potential tariffs could mean for our top dairy trading partners.
Well, Clinton, it is amazing how quickly rhetoric can change. Last year here at the Milk Business Conference, the focus was on the lack of attention on trade with the current administration. And today, it's what the focus back on trade with the Trump administration could mean for ag, both in terms of what's at risk and what dairy could possibly gain. But check this out. In the latest Farm Journal Ag Economist Monthly Monitor, we asked this question. If President Trump evokes tariffs on any of our top 3 trading partners, retaliation by which country would have the biggest impact on agriculture? No surprise, 63% said China, but 37% say it's Mexico. National Corn Growers Association and the American Soybean Association recently conducted analysis just looking at China and what Trump's possible 60% tariff on China would mean.
In that type of situation, we were looking at if a 60% tariff on U.S. corn and soybeans translated to a 13-cent per bushel drop in corn price in this projection modeling that we did. But that doesn't account for Mexico. If we have a situation with Mexico, that's a whole different ballgame because, over 40% of our corn exports have gone to Mexico this year. Just a really critical trading partner for corn.
Now, Clinton, here is another big wild card when it comes to trade. During the first Trump administration, the U.S. struck a trade deal with China. Much of that created new and more demand for many U.S. ag goods. We actually had record corn exports to China as a result of phase 1. So will Trump pick back up where he left off? If so, that could actually be good for U.S. ag trade. Reporting from the Milk Business Conference here in Las Vegas, I'm Tyne Morgan.
All right, thanks, Tyne. While Canada may not top the list as the biggest concern for agriculture if trade hiccups emerge, it is a big issue for U.S. dairy. And potential for conflict is already stirring as U.S. dairy leaders question Canada's commitment to the USMCA signed during the last Trump administration. According to the International Dairy Foods Association, members have yet to receive the full range of dairy access promised by Canada under the agreement.
Clearly, the contract that we wrote isn't fully being abided by. So if we're going to, spend some time to review this in the, 2026 and revisit the language around dairy, I don't know that we need to change it, but from a behavior standpoint, we just need to get execution of the language that already exists.
So how big is this market? Take a look at this graphic from USDA. It shows that from 2010 to 2021, total dairy exports from the U.S. to Canada, adjusted for inflation, rose 48% from $466 million in 2010 to $691 million in 2021. It's a break from the cold for many producers visiting Las Vegas from around the country. Meteorologist Alyssa Heilman joins us. And Alyssa, the eastern part of the country is in for everything from downpours to snow.
That's exactly right. A long range of rain across the East Coast into the Northeast, all the way down to the Southeast as well. So a lot of that eastern half of the United States seeing rainfall, as well as some snow showers and some mixed precipitation mixed in there. And that, as that continues to move further east, seeing more of that snow moving into parts of the northeastern United States, and seeing that snow in the Great Lakes region. It was in the Midwest on Wednesday into Thursday, seeing some more of it across the Great Lakes. A lot of lake effect snow there because of the winds as well. Now going further into the week, Friday here, we're seeing some clearance for a big portion of the central United States, some snow out in the mountainous areas on the west coast. Then going into Saturday, we see some more rain in the plains that then moves into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes region. Northern part of that is some snowy conditions in the southern parts, seeing rain that moves through towards the east as you go later into the weekend. And Clinton, there in Las Vegas, enjoying the sights and sounds. Here's a look at downtown Las Vegas, courtesy of envyroads.com. Sunny skies there yesterday. Today, a bit more on the cloudy side. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Well, grains had a big day after the release of the latest supply-demand numbers, but cattle also made some gains. We'll have more on that coming up. And later, an award winner from this year's Milk Business Conference. Meet this year's top young producer who's all about growing his business.
AgDay is brought to you by Winfield United. Maximize crop performance potential by delivering a high load of zinc, manganese, and boron in one efficient application. Max In Ultra ZMB Plus, built for it. Learn more at winfieldunited.com.
Livestock markets were well into the green ahead of Tuesday's supply-demand report. AgDay's Michelle Rook takes a deeper dive into the numbers in Markets Now.
A higher close in the grains on Tuesday after the WASD. Darren Fry is back with analysis. And Darren, corn, a bit of a shock there to see a 200 million bushel ending stocks decrease by USDA. Do you think that the market actually handled it well? I thought maybe it was a little muted.
Yeah, I think the rally was somewhat tempered because of soybeans. You know, soybeans didn't change in this report. And of course, we know South American weather's been going well. And I think that weighed on corn some. But corn had a nice finish, up 5.5 to 7 cents, depending on the contract. And of course, that came because of the 200 million bushel reduction in our carryout.
We also saw the world ending stocks on corn dropped 7.7 million metric tons. So when you look at the balance sheet, is this enough to get corn over these resistance areas on the charts?
You know, I think so. 450.5 has been that area we need to clear. And we didn't do that yesterday, but I think we can do that by the end of the week. I want to see follow through. And we certainly have the fundamental firepower to do that with this report. You know, any carry out here in the low 1.7s after having this record large crop is amazing. It speaks to how high demand is. And we did see on the report as well, they upped Brazil's demand 2 million metric tons, Ukraine's demand 400,000 metric tons, and then a spattering of another 300,000 throughout the world. And so demand is higher, and that is why we're seeing our balance sheet get a little bit tighter. You know, if they come with a lower yield in January, that would kind of be the frosting on the cake to put us, you know, under 1.7, maybe approaching even low 1.6s, and that just does not justify lower prices.
Did soybeans just follow corn because really the balance sheet stayed pretty much the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think wheat, you know, was a little bit friendly on the report. Corn was the leader. Wheat tried to fall along. Beans did fall along. But hey, unless we have a weather problem in South America, we're going to have a hard time getting beans above $10 and certainly above $10.50. And so that's kind of the wet blanket on the complex for now.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Darren Fry, Water Street Solutions. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Starting here with a look at our jet stream, and we have a very deep trough across the United States here. We're seeing bringing very cold temperatures to parts of the Midwest, especially the Great Lakes region, seeing very, very, very cold temperatures, as well as some windy conditions too. You're seeing all those lines close together, those contours all together mean very windy conditions. So bringing some winds across the Great Lakes, across the Midwest, that's increasing lake effect snow as well, lake enhanced snow there with those cold temperatures coming from that Arctic low that's dipping into parts of the Great Lakes and, like I said, into parts of the Midwest as well. As we move forward here, we're seeing some more areas of high pressure across the United States. Another disturbance, though, as we go into Friday, starting out there in the plains and then moving east, moving into, again, the Great Lakes and the Midwest, bringing some rain, bringing some snow for the weekend. And then another area of high pressure sets up here Sunday for most of the United States, seeing some possibility of some rain and snow, though, in the Pacific Northwest, as there is a trough setting up on that side of the United States. Again, mostly high pressure as we go into next week, seeing some warmer conditions, not nearly as cold as we're getting with that Arctic low that is around for today and continuing to move east for the later days coming up. Precipitation outlook here, we're seeing some drier conditions in areas like Mississippi and in areas of Alabama, as well as Georgia, as well as Arizona, than the rest of the United States. Mostly maybe a little bit drier normal, wetter than normal in the Pacific Northwest. Temperature outlook here, this is the 17th to the 23rd. Most of the United States here seeing above normal temperatures, warmer than we'd usually expect for this time in December. Now a look here at Janesville, Wisconsin. We got some clouds and sun, high of 27, low of just 2. Arctic low is there. Marietta, Georgia, 48, low of 30. Finally, Edmond, Oklahoma, 54 is the high, low of 42.
The latest U.S. red meat export numbers are out, and they show that pork exports have continued at a record pace. The U.S. Meat Export Federation reporting pork exports reached more than 252,000 metric tons in October. That's up 3% from a year ago. Value also climbed 3% to more than $710 million.
You cannot overstate the importance of Mexico as it relates to our overall business on exports of pork. But if you look a little further down the list of other countries, Central America continues to perform well as they have been for most of the year, up 6%. You look at the Caribbean region, up over 20%.
Hallstrom predicts records will also be broken on value and volume when it comes to pork as we wrap up the year. Pork producers could be facing lower feed costs next year. Farm Doc Daily of the University of Illinois looking into it, supplying this graphic, saying the projected feed cost index for farrow to finish next year is 87. Researchers say that indicates feed costs next year are projected to be 13% lower than they were this year due to lower corn and soybean meal prices. The report says average feed costs this year were substantially lower than feed costs in 2022 and 2023. And they say current feed costs approximately $33.50 per hundredweight. Up next, a young dairy farmer with big dreams. See how he's making them come true by growing his operation next.
Ag Day is brought to you by the Pork Checkoff. Your Pork Checkoff dollars are hard at work building a bigger appetite for pork right here at home. One of our main goals is to encourage younger generations to join us at the table. Visit porkcheckoff.org/radio to see how we're reaching this new audience.
The Milk Business Awards were handed out here last night, and this week on Ag Day, we will highlight the top award winners. Now we start with the Young Producer Award, which was given to Perry Baton of New Franken, Wisconsin. And as Tyne Morgan reports, Perry knew that in order to survive in the dairy industry, his business had to grow.
I always like farming. I mean, I think it's a really good lifestyle, stressful and everything, but I changed a lot. I used to like more of the tractors and working land, and then when we took this over, I had to focus on the cows and kind of become a cow guy. I always say that if you keep, good cow numbers, everything else on that side, it's a little more leverage.
Perry's dairy is impressive when you walk into the facilities today, but 12 years ago, this was all a dream.
Well, my dad bought it in 1979, so he was first generation here. It wasn't operating at the time. And then him and my mom started milking cows, I think in 80. They were at like 30, and then in 89 they doubled, went to 70. 2012 is when they were getting kind of tired of it, so I bought in, sold my house, and decided it was a good time to do it. 2016, we bought a neighbor out and we're milking 2 stanchion barns. And then 2017, we built the first freestyle barn in a little retrofitted parlor. And then 2 years ago, we put in a parallel parlor in our old heifer barn and went up to about 700 cows.
There were some times that I questioned what he was doing and wondering if he was moving a little fast, but that's been Perry's nature, is to keep things moving rather quickly.
Brad Zellner is Perry's nutritionist and has worked with him from almost day one.
I think he might have been the first guy I called to come in here and help me. My wife has been a big part. I don't know how she put up with a lot of that stress.
Perry's wife, Cassandra Baton, says the early days were challenging.
There's a lot of decisions and stuff, ideas that I wasn't quite on board with, but in the long run, like a lot of them, you can see that it's been for the better.
And what makes this operation even more impressive is the fact that the Batons had to build all of this pretty much on their own.
He had some help from family, but not as much as what some of the other operations have had, and he wasn't starting with anything new or immaculate.
We just installed a herd monitoring cow manager system, Year tag system. I'm very, very happy with it. And we cut our shots well below half of what we do now for breeding. It's kind of like an extra person in the herd.
It's an endless effort to become more efficient, and even more changes could be on the way.
We're looking at putting a sand separation in. We're definitely planning to grow the herd a little bit. We're gonna put in a bigger feed pad.
And as Perry looks back, he says it's rewarding to see the change and growth in them as well.
I'd say I'm pretty proud. It's kind of cool when you can walk in and one's taking care of fresh cow, and it's like, makes you feel good that he's taking care of that just as good as you are sometimes. So The most rewarding is seeing all your stuff you did, you know, all your accomplishments, the change over time.
It means a lot. He's not one to be in the spotlight, and I think it's a great opportunity for younger producers to realize that, you know, it's not all about driving tractor.
Perry says these older barns are a sign of how much has changed. And now raising the next generation with their son Nathan and daughter Ivanka, they are his motivation to not stop here.
All right, thanks, Tyne, and that's all the time we have this morning. Thanks for watching. We'll have more from this year's Milk Business Conference in Las Vegas tomorrow morning right here on AgDay. Have a great day.